Hey guys, Nash is back, and today I was gonna do a quick is a subjective term, video on Thor. I was thinking of doing one on the difference between Frigg and Freya, but then I figured if I'm being realistic in the scale of how people rank the importance of the gods, usually Odin and Thor are like the top two that everybody goes to. So I figured that I should probably start off with Odin, Thor, and then work my way down to Freya, Frigg's difference, and then Freya and Frey, and then all the other ones. And if I actually had stopped being a lazy asshole, maybe I could have gotten to this sooner, but instead I've been cleaning and impulsively rearranging my house, which has pissed off the ghosts, and they've decided to break my blinds. Walking out here, so my dog was barking at something out in the living room while I was in my room doing some shit, and I come back out here later to notice something ain't right about this window. So, the blinds. The blind is broken. I say to myself quietly. It's fucking broken. Like, this bitch gone done snapped in half. Now, nobody was out here, and I'm all the way in the back over there. So, while my dumbass was wondering, what's my dog been barking at? The ghost's been over here breaking my shit. You know what that means? It's go time. Out of the fucking house! Stop breaking my shit! Good times. Anyway, so I have notes here, and I have notes here on my other monitor, so I'm going to try to keep this as structured as possible, but if you've watched any of my other explanation videos, you probably have realized that I like to go off on tangents, and then I get distracted by every little thing around me, and I go off on another tangent, and that's how that works. But anyway, jumping right into it, Thor, most commonly called Thor, started out from the Old English, well actually it started off from the Proto-Germanic, which is Thunraz, which translates directly to thunder, and then the Old English for his name was Dunthor, I'm turning Irish? Well, technically it's Old English, so it's kind of cool. The Old English of his name would be Thunor. Typically, Thor is associated with thunderstorms, but he's also associated with the sky, agriculture, fertility, and probably second to thunder, probably protection and strength. A lot of people associate him with protection as well as, like, strength in, well, physical strength, but me personally, I also kind of almost take it to, like, mental strength, because I see Thor as someone who's not just, like, yeah, he got the +1 biceps, but he's not just, I mean, there are times he acts like a frat boy in the Eddas, but at the same time I see him as also somebody who has a great deal of mental strength to be able to, you know, take on in order to take on all the battles that he does, you have to have some level of mental strength as well. So, while I don't necessarily associate him with wisdom as I would Odin, I do see him as somebody who is very strong-willed, strong mentally willed, as well as physically strong. Thor is married to the goddess Sif, who is also associated with agriculture. She is, if you know the story of Loki and her hair, she had beautiful golden hair, and Loki was bored, and had a pair of scissors. So, you know what happened. He cuts her hair off, she gets pissed, Thor threatens him, and he has to go to the dwarves, who forge her new hair. Anyway, his most notable enemy was Jormungandr, who is the Midgard serpent, the world serpent who encircles all of Midgard and swallows the end of his own tail. During Ragnarok, he is prophesied to kill Thor, who is also prophesied to kill him. They kill each other, and Jormungandr's venom is what finally does Thor in. He takes, I think is it 9 steps he takes? He takes like 9 steps before falling to the serpent's venom. Anyway, after Ragnarok, his sons Magni and Modi inherit Mjolnir, and with it they restore order to the chaos. Sif is the mother of Modi and Thrud, who is his daughter. And Magni is his son from the giantess Jonsoksa. During the conversion of the Scandinavians to Christianity, Thor was considered to be Christ's biggest rival. And during this period of conversion is when we actually find the most preserved amount of Mjolnir amulets. So it's almost as if during that time of conversion, a lot of the pagans turned to Thor during that time to deal with it and to try to use him to resist the oncoming onslaught that was Christianity. Bad joke time, but if you really think about it, Thor makes a great rival to Jesus, because, I mean, one has a hammer and one was nailed to a cross. That's terrible. Oh no. I mean, I just wonder if anybody like 1,000 years ago was like, hey, wasn't your god nailed to a cross? Yeah, you should totally worship him. And they're all like, hammer, huh? But anyway, that's a bad joke that all my heathen friends like posting on Facebook. Anyway, so during his most popular time in Scandinavia was from the year 790 to 1100 CE. So during that time is when he was at his highest popularity. And then we find the most amulets from the period of conversion. Thor was... I would like to say that Thor was even more important, in a way, than Odin, because Thor was seen as kind of the god of the common people. He was a protector of the everyday person. He wasn't, you know, like, out of touch, not, I want to say out of touch, but he was personable to the average working person. It wasn't like this high and mighty. He was, like, their god. So I think a lot of people in the common sector turned to Thor as their primary deity. Even today, there is, even today Thor is popular among pagans, but also we get the day of the week, Wednesday. Odin, you trying to tell me something? I did you a video. No, we get the day of the week, Thursday, from Thor. So in German, it's Donnerstag, and then in Norwegian, it's Torsdag. Torsdag. So the things Thor was most commonly invoked for were to seal business contracts, for agricultural abundance, protection during voyages or throughout the year, victory in battle, obviously, and for the consecration of marriages. When Christianity was introduced to Scandinavia, the people were like, and it really didn't diminish Thor's importance in their lives, and I think that even after Scandinavia and Iceland were converted officially, I still think a majority of the people there were like, yeah, Jesus is great. Uh-huh. Wink, wink. So, along with Mjolnir, which is probably the most obvious symbol that people associate Thor with, he also has his belt, Meginjorth, and his iron gloves, which allow him to boost his strength, and it like doubles his strength, even more so than what it naturally is, which is quite impressive. Throughout the Eddas and stories of Thor, it is also shown that he is very quick to anger. Loki knows this in particular. He's never really depicted as being very subtle. He's very direct, to the point, here's what you do. And that's why when his hammer Mjolnir was stolen, and Loki was like, okay, let's go under disguise as Freya. You get to be Freya. And that's why I can just picture Thor sitting at this grand dining hall, and he's wearing a dress and a veil, and I think in the story itself it says his eyes were glowing with anger, and he's just eating all of this food like, I'm gonna kill you in 2 seconds. Yeah, I'm Freya. I can just picture this hulking man just sitting there with this beard under a veil and these eyes that are just like, it's not what I thought Freya looked like. If you put on a few pounds, Freya, what happened? Anyway, another way he differs from the typical Marvel interpretation is that it's said that he has red hair and a very glorious beard. Not like Chris Hemsworth, who does not have a glorious beard. Where's your glorious beard? And blonde hair. I mean, blonde hair works, but in the stories it's said that he has red hair. and a very glorious beard. I wish I had a glorious beard. Wouldn't that be nice? So, in addition to being a god who is associated with battle, I also emphasized in the beginning that he was a god who kind of resonated with the common people. So, in addition to being called upon because of his strength in battle and for aid in victory, his strength was also called upon during different tasks at the homestead. For example, like a farmer or even a housewife who needed help with a specific task would call to Thor. And that's one thing, because I think, like, it's like a disconnect between Christianity and, like, heathen religion, is that I personally see the heathen gods as being more personable. Like, they get everyday things, whereas the Christian god always seems like so high above on this pedestal. It seems like trivial matters, like, oh, asking for help with whatever just seems like, it's just one of those things like, I'm not gonna, you don't really care. Whereas, you know, like, the heathen gods seem more personable, like, yeah, mortal problems. Yeah, even we're not immune from those. Like, we had to build our own wall. Well, we would have had to build our own wall, but in the end we only had to build like a quarter of it. I mean, not even that. Because the gods were lazy at the building of the Wall of Asgard, and yeah, they know the struggle. They're like, God damn it, hire a contractor and get Loki to negotiate a deal. It's like, you know, a real estate agent. Loki the real estate agent. But anyway, so it's like common mundane tasks that you just need to get through, stuff like that. That's like what Thor would have been associated with the common people, and also, in my personal interpretation, I mean, today, I don't know if I'm the only one that does that, but I feel like a lot of people turn to Thor for, like, everyday thing. It's just kind of like, he's just kind of like the dude you go get drinks with sometimes. Like, I don't know, I'm trying to give it, like, a good interpretation of how I see him. Like, obviously, don't mess with the guy, but it's kind of like, he's just, like, that guy. Like, he's that cool dude. Cool dude with a great beard that you just, you know, you sit back and get drinks with and talk shit about beating up giants. Like, oh, how many giants you beat the shit out of today? You know, it's like one of those things. Like, he just is very personable to me. Like, I've never felt like, whereas, like, with Odin, I felt kind of intimidated at first because he's smart and he's cunning. Thor's just kind of like, yep. He's not portrayed as being very cunning. His not his street smarts, but like his intellectual knowledge is never praised above everything. That's more of Odin or even Loki's deal. Thor is just kind of a get shit done, blue collar kind of guy. At least that's how I've always interpreted him. So that's just my 2 cents. I went off on a tangent. So a couple of stories that Thor is associated with. Most notably is probably him and Loki going over to Jotunheim and meeting Utgard Loki. And they get in a series of contests. So, the first trial, Loki stepped up to the plate, and he offered to compete in an eating contest. I mean, after Thor eating all those chicken wings over at Thrymes, you'd think that you think that Thor would be associated with, like, eating. But no, Loki stepped up to the plate and was like, I got this. Problem was, he was pitted against Loki, who is literal fire, and Loki lost because Loki decided to eat everything. The plate, the cutlery, everything. And Lo's just like, the fuck? So he lost that, so Loki was declared the winner. And then next there's a race to be won. So the human servant that was with them decided to run a race against Hugi. And he didn't win. He didn't win because
he was weak.
We're gonna be serious. So he didn't win because he was literally racing thought. And that didn't work out too well for him. But at the time, none of them realized that their opponents are basically things you can't beat. So when it's Thor's turn to step up to the plate, and he's been watching his human servant and Loki just fail, and he's like,
yeah, +1 biceps. I got this.
So he chooses to do a drinking contest, as you do, and so Utgard Loki offers him this large drinking horn. He's like, okay, pal, step up to the plate. So Thor drinks from it, and he can't empty it, which is which is baffling to him, because he always drains his meat horns. He's just like,
What the hell is this, archenemies?
well, it wasn't booze. It was the ocean. So he gets mocked for that, and then he gets a challenge of lifting this cat off the floor. So Thor can't manage to lift the cat. He can only lift one paw in the air. So he gets mocked again. He has to wrestle this old lady, Ely, and they get to it, and Thor gets finally forced down, and he put up a valiant fight, but he lost, and I can imagine at this time he was really baffled and confused. So the next morning, Utgard Loki decides to tell them what they were actually doing during these contests, and it reveals that Loki's opponent in the eating contest was fire. Thjalfi's opponent in the race had been thought, which is obviously you can't beat thought. And not thought, like begone thought. No, like thought. I just can't pronounce things correctly. In Thor's contest, he was drinking the ocean, and in fact, he drank so much, however, that the sea level dropped, and that made everybody kind of step back and go, wow, shit, where's he keeping all of that? And then the gray cat that he had tried to lift up was actually Jormungandr. And then, fighting Ely, it was revealed that she was, in fact, old age, and nothing, not even the gods, can escape eventual old age. So, once all of this is revealed, he wanted to kill Utgard Loki, and he whips out his hammer and tries to smash his skull in, but they all vanish, and the stronghold is gone. Alright, so Thor worship back in the day. Now, there's not a lot of stuff that we actually know about specific rituals and stuff like that, because all of that knowledge was lost. But probably the most famous temple that we know of was the temple in Uppsala in Sweden, which was dedicated to Frey, Odin, and Thor. I actually had other notes about that. Oh yeah, so in my notebook, I knew I had written some other stuff about this. So Adam of Bremen in the 1070s claimed to have known someone who had seen the temple at Uppsala in Sweden. He said that it was roofed in gold with 3 statues inside, Thor at the center with a scepter, and Odin at one side with a spear. The other side was Fricko, possibly meaning Frey, or it could have been the masculine form of Frigg. He said the Swedes sacrificed to Thor on most occasions, but to Odin in war and Frey for harvest and marriage. Near to the temple there is an evergreen tree that no one knows the species of, next to which is a well where men are sacrificed to tell the future. If the man sunk, the gods would do the will of the people. Adam also claims that there was a chain of gold around the tower. In a separate grove nearby, Adam also says they sacrificed 9 members of 9 species, including men, dogs, and horses, at a 9-day festival that happens every 9 years. 9 being a sacred number, such as Odin hung himself for 9 days and nights. Oh, and Heimdall is the son of 9 mothers, for instance, which was the example that I put in here. These sacrifices were performed by hanging, which speaks to hanging sacrifices for Odin, as Odin was sacrificed to himself via hanging. Another temple description comes from the Irbyggja saga, where a temple is built in Iceland, with wood from Norway, with a pillar in the middle and a bowl atop that, with a twig inside the bowl. When animals were sacrificed, their blood was bled into the bowl and then spread on the walls of the temple and on the worshippers. The blood was called halut, which related to Hjolta, to be fated to must do something. While this could be an accurate account, it could also be someone hundreds of years later writing about what they think pagan temples could have looked like. So we're not actually sure if Adam of Bremen's interpretation of Uppsala or this temple in Iceland, if that's actually what they looked like, or if that was just him writing about, oh, I knew a guy who saw Uppsala. That's what it looked like. Like, I have a friend of a friend of a friend whose cousin, whose uncle's nephew's cousin, went to Uppsala. According to that interpretation, and according to other interpretations, Uppsala was primarily dedicated to Frey, Odin, and Thor. So all of these temples were destroyed when Christians decided to move into the neighborhood and drive down real estate prices. So there's the story of the infamous king of Norway, Olaf Tryggvason, who was around from 995 to 1000 CE, and he converted everyone, or tried to convert everyone. Again, I'm still thinking that, worship still went on underground. Like, people went to church and they were Christian outside, but in their houses and in their bodies, in their minds, they were still like, yeah, I just don't want to get snakes shoved down my throat. So he was responsible for a lot of the conversion, the bloodiest of conversions. So yeah, it was by the 12th century that the cult of Thor, or the popular worship of Thor, was snuffed out in its entirety. I think if it had truly been snuffed out in its entirety, not as many people today would probably be pagan. I mean, I still think that there were a lot of holdouts, especially in, like, further removed regions. In today's modern interpretation, I think a lot of people tend to start out with Thor, Odin, possibly Freya and Frigg, as they were probably the most that people know of. Of course, there's a lot of popularity around Loki now because of Marvel and because of everything like that, which, in my opinion, is fine. I figure, if I know especially people who worship Loki get a lot of shit because of that, and people think that they're only worshiping Loki because of that. But my interpretation is, if that introduces you to actual Norse paganism, then Loki's not gonna complain. I really don't think any of the gods were complaining, because, I mean, if it brings people to the path, they're like, cool, ticket to ride. I mean, if they're really, truly, honestly willing to learn and put in the effort, and then there's pop culture paganism, which is a whole other thing. But anyway, in today's modern practices, I think that Thor is one of the most popular and one of the ones that most people would be most interested in learning about, because he's kind of the one that most people know of and start off with. And yeah, he still is, for most, what's that phrase? He is, for most intents and purposes, still a god of the common people. He's still very down to earth, and as somebody who does work with Thor, I've never really seen him as somebody who's necessarily hard to approach. As long as you're not like a conniving asshole and you're willing to, put in hard work. I mean, I feel like Thor appreciates hardworking people. What's that, work ethic, like hard work ethic. Like, I feel like he's somebody who is, if you're lazy and you don't want to do things, which this goes for Loki too, because Loki's big on get your shit done. But I feel like Thor is one of those, is like, if you're gonna sit on a couch and be a couch Viking, then Thor's gonna be like, he's very much go do something, get it done. Like, there's no procrastinating. It's, here's the problem, solve it. If that involves a hammer, then score. I feel like if you're starting off with heathenism or Norse paganism in any respect, I think Thor is a good place to start at, because he is still very much a god of the common people. So I think that's a good place to start if you're not sure who to start learning about or who to start reaching out to. I feel like Thor is probably step numero uno. I hope that makes sense in context of everything, and I hope that this video has been informative. If you have any questions, just drop them below in the comments, and I'll get to answering them. I like answering everything in mass, so I let a couple comments build up, and then I'll be like, I'll answer these all in mass. So if I haven't answered any comments yet, which I'm going to get to doing, because for some reason, I turned around, and, like, last night I had 190 subscribers, and now I have 201 as of checking, like, an hour ago. So that was what I wanted to say earlier, and I figured I'd get the video out of the way first, is that, thanks for everybody who has subscribed, because 200 is not a big number, but for me it's a big number. So, especially to turn around and have, like, 10 subscribers overnight, like, that's awesome to me. So thank you to everybody who has subscribed. That's really awesome. And yeah, if you have any ideas for videos that you'd like to see me rant on about, or if you have any topics that you'd like me to talk about, anything like that, write them in the comments, and I will try to get around to them as soon as I can. So, aside from that, thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!